Hey Next Step people, thought I'd do a quick video on the 4 things you need for a successful DA on a subdivision site. Basically, the first thing I would always have is a plan. You need to look at whatever block of land that you're looking at buying, whether it's got a house on it or not. You need to have a concept that works, and it needs to physically lay out. And there's a little bit of experience about how you physically lay it out, how many blocks you go for, how you access them, how you lay your streets and stuff out. If you're doing streets, if it's frontage stuff like this subdivision block here, which, street frontage, different kettle of fish, but you need to have a plan, and you really need to run that through on as many blocks as you can. Think about how it lays out, think about how the access goes, think about how the services go. So that's the first thing you need. The second thing you need is a planning assessment. So whether you use a planner, whether you get to know your planning scheme, that's up to you. I wrote my own planning assessment on this one. I paid a planner to do it on a previous one. I'm getting pretty decent with my planning schemes that I know well, so I'm okay with it. But basically it addresses all the different parts of the planning scheme that affect your subdivision and how you comply with them, how you don't comply with them, and how it goes together. So that planning assessment's a really key document and needs to try and cover everything off as best you can, because it'll make your planning assessment go really smoothly through the council. If you've done that well, your planning application will go pretty well through the council. So the third thing you need is your full suite of documents. It's really kind of crucial when you submit an application that you have a copy of your title, you have cover letter there saying what you're doing and all that sort of stuff, your planning report, planning assessment, and whatever other documentation your particular subdivision requires. As you can see, I got a lot of grassland around me here. This subdivision required a bushfire assessment. Now, nothing was particularly scary, it's grassland, we have a railway track neighbouring it. There's nothing too bad, no bad bushfire ratings or anything, but it has to be done, otherwise the council are going to push back and it's going to delay you. So you need to have that done. If I was doing some bigger infrastructure here, I'm just doing a little bit of stormwater. If I was doing bigger infrastructure, I'd have an engineering concept plan. Now that's not full sections, 3-dimensional, it's just 2D, lay out the systems where they're going, lay out the road where it's going, think about that sort of stuff. You may have some other things. What else have we done? Oh, we had a lot of title information on a different subdivision we did where no one really knew who owned one of the adjoining bits that we were interacting with. Turned out everyone who owned it was long dead, like 100 years plus type stuff. So, all that, you need to make sure all your documents together. Now the big one, this is what I would really recommend you do before you do your subdivision, before you submit it to the council. Talk to all your neighbours. It's confronting, it's difficult. Often you'll become the scapegoat for previous history and issues around maybe the council didn't look after them, maybe the council gave them incorrect information. You don't know what kind of hornet's nest you may stir up, but you got to talk to the neighbours. The problem is if you lodge your DA and you're doing a subdivision near them and it's generally going to be vacant land or at least quite open space, they don't want the extra intensity next to them. If you're doing a 2-into-1 in town, they don't want another townhouse. They don't want the intensity. Generally, some do. But even if they do want it, telling them ahead of time, making sure that you've talked to them, and then integrating any of their concerns into your DA if you can, makes a big difference. So, can't always address all the concerns, but if you know them all in advance, forewarned is forearmed, and you may get through a little bit easier. Now, in this one, we didn't. We got just the minimum number of representations to trigger the longer process. So unfortunately, I've got at least another 2 weeks on this. But I've read all the representations, and really we've taken them all into account already. We're going to be fine. So that's where it is. But yeah. So summing up, first thing you need is a plan, and you need to know how that works with the figures. The plan isn't just the physical layout; it's also the numbers. Talk to people, work out what you've got involved, work out what a sewer cost per metre, work out what stormwater cost per metre, crossovers, driveways, curb and guttering. Big one I always forget, fire hydrants. You've got to be within a certain range of every fire hydrant for every house. Second thing, have your planning report done. Look at the planning scheme, decide how you comply, make sure you don't miss anything. Third thing, get the rest of your documents together. Bushfire assessment, structural surveys, whatever you got to have done. Landslip survey, we had to have one of them done once. And then fourth thing, talk to all your neighbours. That's the 4 things. Talk to your neighbours is the most important. Make sure you do that before you do your DA, before you submit your DA to the council, and make sure you take their concerns on board as best you can.